Imagine for a moment that you are tasked with building a living creature.
Okay.
But there's a catch, a really big one. You are strictly forbidden from using anything biological.
Right, so no cells, no DNA.
Exactly. You can't use cells, you can't use blood, no bone, nothing organic at all.
That makes it pretty difficult.
Right. Instead, you're placed in front of this massive humming computer server room.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And your instructions are simply to start throwing digital information, like raw data and programming code, into this digital environment.
Like a digital soup.
Yes, exactly like a computer soup.
Yeah.
And then you just wait.
You just wait.
You sit back and you wait to see if the right combination of code suddenly, sparks, if it organizes itself and starts behaving like something alive.
That is wild.
Something that might even start interacting with you.
It really feels like the setup for a classic piece of speculative fiction, doesn't it?
It really does.
Like the kind of story where the scientist pushes away from the keyboard and the monitor blinks and a prompt just appears on the screen saying, I am awake.
Yes. The ultimate sci-fi trope.
But the reality is actually far more compelling than fiction here. Because this specific thought experiment, this deliberate attempt to brew life inside a machine,
Yeah.
it was a very real, very active scientific pursuit at the dawn of the 1990s.
Wait, really? The 1990s?
Oh, yeah. And the pursuit of that digital life, it triggered this massive kind of unseen shift in how human beings define the boundary between the natural world and the artificial one.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive,
Yeah.
because that is exactly what we're getting into.
I am so excited for this one.
We are opening up a really dense, incredibly thought-provoking anthropological text from 1991.
Right.
It's titled Reproducing the Future by Marilyn Strathern. And our mission today is to explore a profound cultural collision.
And it really is a collision.
We are going to look at what happens when a society is suddenly handed the technological tools to intervene in its own biology.
Which is huge.
We want to understand how the concepts of family, of life, and what makes us individuals are completely dismantled.
And then reconstructed, yeah.
Reconstructed when the line between human and machine, or, nature in the laboratory, just ceases to exist.
And Strathern's work is a perfect lens for this because of exactly when it was published.
The early 90s.
Right. The late 1980s and early 1990s represented this really unique technological bottleneck.
How do you mean?
Well, artificial intelligence and computer simulations of life, they were making their first major leaps out of theoretical papers.
Like they were becoming functioning code.
Exactly. And simultaneously, you had revolutionary human reproductive technologies.
Like MVEF.
Yes, in vitro fertilization. These were moving from experimental medical trials to totally accessible public treatments.
Wow, so both happening right at the same time.
Exactly. Traditional human culture was completely blindsided by these two forces hitting all at once.
I can imagine.
Society just had to scramble to figure out how to legislate, categorize, and even just talk about things that had never existed before in human history.
So let's start with this concept of artificial life, or AL, because the text references a 1990 British television program.
Right, the documentary.
Yeah, that documented this exact movement. It featured two prominent American scientists.
Chris Langton and Danny Hillis.
Right. Chris Langton from the Los Alamos National Laboratory and Danny Hillis from the Thinking Machines Corporation.
That name, Thinking Machines, is so perfectly 90s.
It really is. But the way these researchers conceptualized their work, it wasn't just, a step forward in computing.
No, not at all.
It sounded like an absolute rejection of how biology had been studied for centuries.
It was a complete inversion. I mean, a total flip of the scientific method as applied to living things.
Okay, unpack that for us.
So, to understand the magnitude of what Langton and Hillis were proposing, you have to look at traditional biology. For hundreds of years, the biological sciences operated on a strict principle of deconstruction and reductionism.
Breaking things down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you wanted to understand a frog, you dissected the frog.
Poor frog.
Right, but you took the living thing apart. You isolated the organs to see how they pumped.
Uh-huh.
You sliced the tissues to put under a microscope, and you broke down the cells to look at the organelles.
The entire goal being to, find the smallest possible building blocks.
Yes. To derive general principles of logical organization.
So, okay, let me see if I have this. It is essentially the mechanics approach.
Mechanics approach, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to know how a car engine generates power, you take the engine block apart.
Right.
You pull out the pistons, you inspect the spark plugs, and you map out how the mechanical pieces interact.
That mechanic analogy is highly accurate. But it also reveals the fatal flaw in the reductionist approach to biology.
Which is?
Think about it.
Yeah.
When a mechanic takes apart a car engine, the engine stops running, sure. But the individual parts are still just car parts. You can put them back together.
Okay, I see where you're going.
When a biologist takes apart a frog, they lose the very thing they were trying to study.
The life.
The life.
Yeah.
The essence of the living organism slips through their fingers the literal moment the scalpel does its work.
Wow. Yeah.
You might understand the mechanical plumbing of the cardiovascular system, but the emergent dynamic state of being alive is destroyed by the very act of analyzing it.
Because you killed it to study it.
Exactly. Artificial life operates in the exact opposite direction.
Okay.
It relies on synthesis rather than deconstruction.
Meaning they aren't taking anything apart. They're starting from scratch.
Yes. They viewed their work as an alternate form of biology, using computers as the medium.
Which is just a crazy sentence. Alternate form of biology.
It is. Instead of breaking an organism down into its component parts, you are mixing foundational rules, simple programs, and bits of information inside a computer architecture.
And the text mentions them calling it a soup that lives inside a computer.
Which is such a brilliant image.
Highly evocative. It immediately brings to mind, the primordial soup.
Right, the ancient oceans.
Yeah, the nutrient-rich oceans where lightning supposedly struck amino acids and created the first single-celled organisms.
But here, the ocean is made of silicon.
And the amino acids are lines of code, but what are they actually hoping will happen in this digital soup?
Emergent behavior.
Like they can't just be throwing random keystrokes at a hard drive, right?
No. The mechanism they are relying on is called emergent behavior. This is what the researchers referred to as the alchemist's dream.
The alchemist's dream.
Yeah, alchemy historically was the pursuit of mixing base, ordinary materials.
Like lead.
Right, in the hopes of transmuting them into something of infinitely higher value, like gold.
Okay.
In artificial life, the base materials are simple algorithms. You program a set of basic behaviors.
Like what? Give me an example.
Maybe an algorithm that says, seek energy, another that says, avoid obstacles, and a third that says, replicate when energy is high.
Just really simple rules.
Exactly. You drop thousands of these simple codes into the soup. You aren't programming a creature to simulate life.
You're just setting the rules.
You are mixing these characteristics together, stepping back, and observing the effect of combining them.
Wow.
The dream is that the complexity of their interactions will compound until a higher-level behavior emerges that you never explicitly programmed.
So a creature emerges that adapts.
Adapts, evolves, and perhaps even communicates.
I have to pause here because my brain is really snagging on the terminology.
Yeah, it's a lot.
These scientists in the 1990 program are calling this an alternate form of biology.
They are.
And I understand the mechanics of writing code that mimics evolution, but calling it biology seems like an incredible leap.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Because biology implies organic matter. It implies carbon, water, respiration.
Right.
How can they justify taking a word rooted in the physical natural world and applying it to a simulation running on a supercomputer?
That tension you are feeling right now is exactly what Strathern is highlighting in the text.
Oh, really?
Yes. By claiming that a computer simulation is a legitimate form of biology, these scientists are attempting to redefine the word biology at its core.
Okay.
They are arguing that life is not a material. Life is a process.
Life is a process.
Right. If biology is just a set of informational processes.
Like how data is stored in DNA.
Yes. Or how energy is processed, how organisms adapt to environmental feedback. If it's just information processing, then the medium doesn't matter.
So carbon is just one medium.
Carbon-based organic material is just one hardware option. Silicon is another.
That is mind-blowing.
And the author points out an interesting parallel here. Social scientists essentially do the same thing in their research.
How so?
Well, an anthropologist or a sociologist will take different societal characteristics, say, economic class, gender roles, geographical environment,
Okay.
and bring them together in a theoretical framework to observe the effects of combining them.
Oh, I see.
They synthesize these elements to understand human behavior.
Right.
But when computer scientists synthesize elements, they aren't just trying to understand behavior.
They are claiming to actually create it.
Exactly.
Now, for everyone listening, I want you to think about the implications of that for a moment.
Yeah, I think it's deep.
Think about how we all interact with technology today. If life is just an informational process, and biology isn't limited to physical bodies.
What does that make our digital networks?
Exactly. When you open an app, feed it your preferences, react to its algorithm, and watch that algorithm adapt to your behavior to serve you different content.
Are you observing a tool, or are you participating in a massive, distributed digital biology?
Right. Are our social networks essentially a global digital soup where human inputs and machine learning are creating new emergent behaviors?
That is the exact trajectory the text sets up.
Man.
Strathern argues that this profound shift in thinking, this idea that you can mix unexpected inorganic elements together to synthesize something that acts alive,
Yeah.
it could not be contained within the supercomputer labs at Los Alamos.
Of course not. It's too big of an idea.
It wasn't just a quirky scientific theory, it was a new cognitive framework.
And it started leaking out.
It began bleeding out into everyday consumer culture almost immediately.
Wow.
It changed the public's vocabulary, and by changing the vocabulary, it changed how people imagine the physical world around them.
And the text points out that this blur between the organic and inorganic didn't just show up in academic journals.
Where does it show up?
It showed up in advertising.
Oh, right.
Which makes perfect sense because advertising is often the canary in the coal mine for cultural psychology.
Absolutely. They have to know what people are thinking.
Advertisers have to tap into the underlying unspoken assumptions of the public to sell them things.
Yes.
And the text knows how advertisers in 1990 began synthesizing novel entities by combining domains that simply do not naturally belong together.
Strathern provides two incredibly specific, illuminating examples from 1990 to prove this point.
Let's hear them.
The first involves the real estate and commercial development sector.
Real estate.
Yeah. She cites an article from a Japan Airlines magazine that was profiling a new, cutting-edge office block in Osaka.
Okay.
The promotional material didn't describe it merely as a modern building or a high-tech facility.
What do they call it?
It was explicitly marketed as an intelligent building.
Oh, wow. I looked at the specific phrasing from that example, actually, and it is wild.
It really is.
The advertisement claims the building is an organic integration of information-intensive technology, optical fiber networks, and audiovisual equipment.
Organic integration.
The phrase organic integration is used to describe a massive structure made entirely of poured concrete, steel beams, glass, and miles of fiber optic cable.
Right. They took a word fundamentally tied to living organisms and glued it to a skyscraper.
That is so strange to think about in the context of 1990.
And the second example is perhaps even more overt. It comes from the automotive industry.
What did they do?
Mitsubishi was running a campaign for their new vehicles, and the core tagline described the cars as being created as living hardware.
Living hardware.
Yes. The advertising copy promoted the car not as a machine you operate, but as an entity that performs as an extension of your will.
Okay, if a car is an extension of my will,
Yeah,
the car is no longer a separate object.
exactly.
It is a prosthetic. It is a piece of my own nervous system transposed into a metal chassis.
That is exactly the implication.
But this raises a huge question.
What's that?
If society suddenly embraces the idea that office buildings have intelligence and that cars are living hardware, what is happening to our concept of humanity?
That's the million-dollar question.
Are we elevating machines to human status, or are we downgrading human uniqueness to the level of machinery?
The author argues that this is the very mechanism of cultural transformation.
Meaning what?
Meaning, these marketing slogans are not just flashy copywriting. They rely on the human facility for making analogies. Culture evolves by taking an idea that is easily thinkable in one specific domain.
Like the organic growth of a tree?
Right. Or the intelligence of a person and mapping it onto a completely different foreign domain.
Like a concrete building.
Or a combustion engine. When we accept that analogy, we mentally synthesize a new reality.
We create a conceptual hybrid.
Exactly. We start to view the inorganic world as possessing biological qualities.
We soften the ground in our own minds.
We erase the hard boundary.
We really do. I mean, just look at the device you are likely using to listen to this right now.
Oh, for sure.
We don't even blink when we call our phones smart.
No, it's just normal.
We casually complain that our laptop has gone to sleep and we need to wake it up.
We talk about computer networks being infected by a virus.
Yes. The language of living hardware that Strathern identified in 1990 is the native language we speak today.
It's everywhere.
We don't even realize we're using biological metaphors to describe microchips.
But Strathern identifies a critical ricochet effect in this linguistic habit.
A ricochet effect? What do you mean?
Making a machine sound like a living organism inadvertently prepares the public mind for the exact reverse.
Oh. Oh, wow.
If we can accept that a car is living hardware, then we are only one cognitive step away from viewing the human body as biological hardware.
That is terrifying and fascinating.
Right. We begin to see our own organs, our genetics, and our reproductive systems as manageable, programmable, and swappable components.
If nature is just another type of machinery, then nature can be engineered.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the absolute core of this cultural collision.
The main event.
We've seen how the scientific community merged technology and biology in computer labs.
Right.
We've seen how advertising normalized that blur for the general public.
With the intelligent buildings and all that.
But the true test of this new worldview didn't happen with supercomputers or car commercials.
No, it didn't.
It happened when this living hardware mentality crashed into the most intimate, biologically grounded human experience in existence.
Human reproduction.
Exactly. The creation of a family.
This is the historical pivot point of the text.
Set the scene for us. What happened?
In 1990, the British Parliament passed the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Act.
Okay.
This sweeping piece of legislation didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was the culmination of years of debate spurred by the Warnock Committee.
And they had been convened back in the 1980s, right?
Yes, exactly. The committee was tasked with a monumental challenge, looking into the massive ethical, legal, and social implications of entirely new reproductive technologies.
So we're talking about in vitro fertilization.
Right.
The freezing and storing of human embryos.
Yes.
And the use of donor gametes, like sperm and eggs, from third parties.
And to understand the climate of 1990, you really have to understand the panic of the 1980s.
Oh, the text explicitly points out the severe public anxiety surrounding these technologies.
People were genuinely terrified.
The phrase test tube baby was used with a mixture of awe and absolute horror.
There were doom-laden scenarios in the press about scientists playing God.
Creating clones, breeding humans in laboratories.
The science had sprinted so far ahead that the culture's ability to understand it, let alone regulate it, was left in the dust.
But why was it so disruptive?
The disruption was so profound because it attacked the foundational bedrock of how Euro-American society organized itself.
Okay, explain that.
The author uses the term English kinship to describe this foundation.
English kinship.
Right. Historically, in Western culture, the concept of a family was rooted entirely in what were considered natural facts.
Natural facts, meaning biology.
Exactly. Kinship was based on human heredity, shared genetics, and the physical biological act of procreation.
That was the unshakable baseline.
You did not invent your family ties. They were a biological inevitability that you were born into.
The natural facts dictated the social reality?
Yes, the biological mother was the social mother.
Well,
The biological father was the social father. It was taken entirely for granted.
but the moment in vitro fertilization becomes a reality,
That entire foundation shatters.
because suddenly kinship is no longer a biological inevitability. It becomes an assembly process.
Right. Technology fractured the concept of motherhood, for example, into 3 distinct pieces.
Let me guess. You could have a genetic mother who provides the egg.
Yes.
You could have a gestational mother, like a surrogate, who carries the pregnancy.
Correct.
And you could have a social mother who ultimately raises the child.
Exactly. The natural facts are no longer facts, they are just variables.
Yeah, they really are just variables.
And because they are variables, families become socially constructed arrangements that merely borrow from biological metaphors.
So you are composing a relationship in much the same way the artificial life scientists compose their computer soup.
That is a perfect connection. You are bringing different elements together to synthesize an outcome.
But this must have created an unprecedented legal crisis.
Huge. Which is why the 1990 Act was necessary. For the first time in the history of the human species, the human embryo could exist outside the parental body.
It's just sitting in a laboratory incubator.
Right. It could be frozen, it could be thawed, it could be discarded, or it could be implanted.
So the moral and legal status of that early embryo became the central preoccupation of society.
Because the old natural laws simply no longer applied to it.
I am struggling to understand how a legal system even begins to regulate that.
It was messy.
I mean, if Euro-American culture historically found it impossible to talk about family without invoking strict biology,
Right.
and now biology is just a customizable menu,
Yeah.
doesn't that fundamentally break the old definition of kinship entirely? Are we just making up the rules of what constitutes a family as we go along, based on whoever signs the clinic paperwork?
According to Strathern's analysis, yes. We are inventing it,
We're just making it up.
but we are masking that invention. We use the ghosts of the old biological models to legitimize these new social constructions.
Oh, like using the same words.
Yes, we still use the language of blood ties and natural connection to validate arrangements that are entirely mediated by technology and law.
So we pretend it's the old way.
And the author points out that this brings society to a very precarious, strange place.
Why precarious?
Because if human reproduction is no longer a mysterious act of nature, but a highly technical process that can be managed, paused in liquid nitrogen, outsourced to donors, and legally contracted,
Oh, I see where this is going.
then human reproduction has officially entered the realm of industry.
It's a business now.
Yes.
I want everyone listening to take a moment and think about your own definition of family.
It's a really important question to ask yourself.
How much of your concept of who belongs in your family relies on the strict natural facts of shared DNA?
Right.
And how much of it relies on the social construction of who actually shows up, who raises you, who cares for you?
Technology forced the British legal system to answer that question definitively in 1990.
But on a personal level, we are all navigating that exact same tension today. What makes someone your family? The blood or the bond?
And this monumental shift in how human beings define life and kinship did not happen in a cultural vacuum.
It rarely does.
Right. The technological ability to construct a family occurred at the exact same moment as a very specific economic and cultural revolution in late 1980s Britain.
The text focuses heavily on this.
The collision of these two forces is where Strathern's critique becomes incredibly sharp and revealing.
So the context the text gives is what it calls enterprise culture.
Enterprise culture.
Yes. This is the era of Margaret Thatcher's Britain.
Right.
And looking at this purely as a sociological phenomenon, again, we aren't taking any political sides here, just reporting the context of the book.
Of course.
The shift is staggering. Enterprise culture was a complete rewiring of the societal mindset.
Completely.
Virtually every aspect of human life began to be viewed through the lens of a free market.
Everything became a consumer preference, a commodity, or a customer service.
Everything. So how does this tie into reproduction?
Enterprise culture operated on the core philosophy that the ultimate expression of human freedom is consumer choice.
Okay, choice.
The market is the ultimate arbiter of value, and the individual's ability to select from a menu of options is the highest form of liberty.
Right.
Strathern points out how rapidly and how seamlessly the new reproductive technologies were absorbed into this specific economic language.
It happened fast.
In vitro fertilization and donor gametes weren't just discussed as medical treatments for infertility.
What were they discussed as?
They were framed as a service facilitating people's exercise of options.
A service facilitating options. Let's look closely at that word, options.
Yeah.
It is a word you use when you are buying a car.
Choosing the interior trim or the sound system.
Exactly. Using it to describe the creation of a human being is a massive psychological shift.
It is a profound shift because the concept of enlarging people's reproductive options became the dominant moral imperative.
More choices are better.
The logic of enterprise culture dictates that more choices are inherently better. If a couple could not conceive naturally, the market and technology provided an option.
If they needed a sperm donor, that was an option.
The deep, existential, and historically uncontrollable mystery of creating human life was being sterilized, packaged, and presented as a menu of deliverables for the modern consumer.
Deliverables?
The fertility clinic became a boutique.
It sounds like we traveled straight from the brilliant theoretical alchemist's dream in the Los Alamos computer lab directly to a fast food drive-through window.
That's one way to put it.
I mean, yes, hello, I'll take one family, hold the genetic connection to the father, extra social construction, please, and can I get those embryos frozen for 5 years while I finish my law degree?
It sounds terribly cynical when you phrase it like that.
It does. Is Strathern suggesting that by turning reproduction into a market service, we've inherently cheapened the value of human life?
Well, Strathern is a meticulous anthropologist, so she doesn't use words like cheapened.
Fair enough.
But she is highly skeptical of this framing, and she highlights a massive paradox at the heart of enterprise culture.
A paradox. What is it?
On the surface, treating reproduction as a menu of choices appears to be the ultimate triumph of hyper-individualism.
Because you get to choose.
Right. It is the victory of human will over biological fate. You, the individual, can choose exactly how, when, and with what genetic components you build your family.
You are the master of your biological destiny.
Exactly. But on the other hand, Strathern notes that this exact same dynamic can be viewed as the death of the individual.
Wait, how does that work?
It seems contradictory, right?
Yeah, how does having absolute, ultimate consumer choice over your own reproduction result in the death of the individual?
It is contradictory until you look at the mechanism behind it.
Okay, walk me through it.
If nature is no longer a given, unchangeable baseline, but rather just a passive backdrop.
Like a warehouse.
Exactly, a warehouse of biological spare parts waiting to be selected by a consumer.
Okay.
Then the boundary between what is natural and what is cultural vanishes entirely.
Nice.
If a human embryo or a human gamete is treated in the exact same transactional manner as purchasing a customizable Mitsubishi car,
Yeah.
then what is distinctively human about it?
Oh.
If everything, including the building blocks of life, is reduced to a commodity, then the unique, intrinsic, unquantifiable value of the individual gets flattened.
We become just another product in the market transaction.
We are mass-producing ourselves.
We are mass-producing ourselves. I want everyone to reflect on that concept because it is incredibly pervasive today.
It really is.
Think about how often our modern society frames profound, sacred human milestones, birth, marriage, death, as industrial complexes requiring customer service and consumer choices.
Oh, absolutely.
We have a massive wedding industry that dictates the options for expressing love.
Right.
We have a funeral industry that provides a menu of services for grief.
And we have a multi-billion-dollar fertility industry.
We are so deeply entrenched in this consumer mindset that we don't even recognize it as a specific ideology.
No, we just accept it as the natural reality of how the world works.
And that blindness is precisely why Strathern's anthropological approach is so vital.
She understands that Euro-Americans are so completely steeped in the ideology of individual choice and enterprise culture that we cannot see our own blind spots.
We literally cannot conceptualize a different way of existing.
So, to shatter those assumptions and force us to look critically at our own behavior, she introduces a completely different cultural framework.
This was my favorite part of the text.
She holds up what we can call the Melanesian mirror.
This shift in the text completely upended how I think about social interaction.
Powerful.
Strathern brings in the ethnographic study of Melanesian societies, specifically focusing on the Hagan people of the Papua New Guinea highlands.
Right.
And she uses this to serve as a contrast to Euro-American concepts of personhood.
And the difference isn't just a slight variation in tradition. It is a fundamental inversion of reality.
Okay, tell us about it.
To fully grasp the Melanesian perspective, we first have to clearly articulate the Euro-American baseline.
The assumption we all operate under without thinking.
Yes. In the West, we assume that individuality is the natural biological default.
You are born alone.
You are born into this world as a singular, separate, autonomous individual. You are a closed system.
Okay.
Because individuality is the default, we believe that we have to do the work to build relationships.
Like socializing.
We have to socialize, we have to network, we have to date, we have to sign marriage contracts. Relationships are seen as secondary cultural constructs that we layer on top of our primary natural individuality.
If I can use an analogy here.
Please do.
The Western view is that we are all individual, solitary planets scattered in the dark.
Right.
We are entirely separate. And we have to expend massive amounts of gravitational energy to pull each other into orbit.
We have to actively build the solar system.
Yes.
That is a perfect representation of the Western mind. Now, the Melanesian worldview flips that entirely upside down.
Completely upside down.
In their framework, relationships are the basic natural condition of humanity.
So you are not born as a solitary planet.
No. You are born as an intricate part of a massive interconnected web. You are fundamentally and naturally connected to others through kinship, exchange, and shared substance.
Wow.
Therefore, differentiating people into separate, autonomous individuals is the artificial artifact.
The individuality is the fake part.
Yes. It is a cultural enterprise. You have to actively do work, perform rituals, and engage in specific exchanges to separate yourself from the network and act as an individual.
My brain is breaking a little bit.
Individuality is not the starting point. It is a temporary cultural illusion created for specific purposes.
They operate as what anthropologists sometimes call dividuals.
Dividuals, yes. Persons who are plural, composed of the relationships that made them.
I am trying to map this onto our earlier discussion, and my brain is really struggling. Let's apply that specific Melanesian mindset to the 1990 reproductive laws.
And the fertility clinic scenario.
Yeah. If we operated from the assumption that connection and relationship are the default rather than autonomous individuality.
How would the entire debate about in vitro fertilization and egg donation have played out differently. It
Exactly.
would completely rewrite the narrative of artificial reproduction.
How so?
Let's look at the concept of gamete donation, a person providing sperm or an egg to a clinic.
Okay.
In the Euro-American enterprise culture, this is viewed strictly as a biological transaction.
Right.
An autonomous individual provides a piece of biological hardware to a medical facility.
A facility which then provides a service to another autonomous individual who needs that hardware to build a family.
It is a transfer of property.
Right. I give my genetics material, I sign away my rights, I get paid, transaction complete, we are separate.
Precisely. But Strathern brings in the older sociological work of Richard Titmuss to challenge this.
Richard Titmuss.
Yes, Titmuss wrote a famous book called The Gift Relationship, which studied blood donation.
Blood donation.
Yeah. He compared the British system of voluntary blood donation to the American system of buying and selling blood plasma.
Oh, interesting.
He argued that voluntary donation was analogous to an organism relating to its environment, a civic gift that binds society together.
So it's not a transaction, it's a connection.
Exactly. When Strathern compares Euro-American gamete donation with Melanesian concepts of exchange, the contrast is stark.
Because in Melanesia, it wouldn't be property.
In a Melanesian framework, giving a piece of yourself, whether it is an egg, sperm, or even food you grew, is never just a commodity transaction.
What is it then?
It is a profound exchange of personhood,
Personhood.
because you are not an isolated individual giving away a separate piece of property.
You are a node in a relationship.
And by giving that biological substance, you are extending that relationship. You are creating a permanent, undeniable social bond through a deeply meaningful gift.
So if I donate an egg in that framework, I'm not providing a raw material for someone else's baby.
No,
I am physically weaving myself into the fabric of their family.
you are part of the web.
The resulting child is quite literally a manifestation of our social relationship.
That completely strips away the cold, commercial enterprise feeling of the fertility clinic, doesn't it?
It really does. It replaces customer service with deep, binding community.
It does.
Take a moment to temporarily adopt this Melanesian mindset, everyone. Look around at your life.
How does it change the way you view the people you interact with?
Your colleagues, your family, the person making your coffee.
If the invisible web of connection between you is the actual, natural reality,
And your feeling of being a separate, isolated individual is just a cultural fiction we've all agreed to play along with.
the world feels vastly different.
It feels infinitely more responsible.
It changes the weight of every interaction. And that is the true power of this kind of anthropological study.
It forces us to realize that the intense debates we have today,
Whether we are arguing about the ethics of artificial intelligence
the boundaries of genetic engineering,
or what legally constitutes a family,
these debates are entirely constrained by our unseen cultural starting assumptions.
we argue about the ethics of reproductive options because we blindly assume we are consumers in a marketplace.
Right.
We argue about whether a computer can harbor artificial life because we blindly assume that biology is just a mechanical process of information transfer.
Strathern forces us to see the invisible cage of our own culture.
She absolutely does.
Let's trace the massive journey we have been on today.
It's been a long one.
We started by looking at the wild alchemist's dream of the late 1980s,
Where computer scientists tried to coax biological life out of a digital soup.
redefining life from a physical substance to an emergent behavior.
We watched as that concept bled out of the laboratory and into the city streets.
Looking at how advertisers use the language of intelligent buildings and living hardware to blur the lines between the organic world and the inorganic machines we build.
From there, we navigated the incredibly complex legal and cultural redefinition of the human family.
We looked at the 1990 British Human Fertilisation and Embryology Act.
Watching society struggle to build a new concept of kinship based on social arrangements and legal contracts, rather than just unchangeable biological facts.
We confronted the dark side of that freedom.
Looking at how enterprise culture and the free market tried to turn the profound existential mystery of human reproduction into just another customer service menu of options.
Right. And finally, we shattered our Western assumptions entirely by looking through the Melanesian mirror.
Realizing that maybe connection, not individuality, is the true default state of human existence.
And we must remember why an anthropological text from 1991 matters so immensely to us right now.
Because we are still living in the direct aftermath of these exact debates.
In fact, the stakes are exponentially higher today.
With advancements in CRISPR gene editing, advanced neural networks,
And increasingly complex reproductive interventions.
we are constantly, daily redefining what is natural.
Our technology is growing vastly more capable of rewriting our biology, our intelligence, and our social structures.
We are still trying to figure out what it means to be human when the human body is just another medium for technology.
We are swimming in the digital suit more deeply than those scientists in 1990 could have ever imagined.
We are.
Which brings me to a final, incredibly provocative thought from the text to leave you with.
Okay.
Near the end of the excerpts we reviewed, the author makes a profound observation about human ambition.
What does she say?
She writes, "Development is integral to the anticipation of what organisms might become. Reproduction concerns everyone."
Well, wait, you used an ellipsis there.
Yeah.
But I get the point.
Oh, you know what I mean. Yet, when human beings reproduce themselves, they inevitably do so with already existing and thus specific forms of themselves in mind.
It is a brilliantly sobering realization.
How so?
We constantly tell ourselves that technology is pushing us forward into a brand new, uncharted future.
Right.
But Strathern is pointing out that we are the ones steering the ship, and we are navigating using the maps of our own past.
We only know what we know.
When we design artificial intelligence, we model it on our own brains.
When we design reproductive technologies, we model families on our existing cultural biases.
Exactly.
So I want you to mull over this question as you go about the rest of your day.
It's a big one.
If we possess the godlike technological power to artificially reproduce our biology, our intelligence, and our future,
Yeah.
are we actually creating anything truly new? Or are we just using futuristic technology to endlessly mass-produce our own past flaws, our own cultural assumptions, and our own enterprise cultures?
Are we building a new future, or are we just cloning the past?
That is the ultimate unanswered question of artificial life.
It really is.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.